You are listening to Inside the Hive on the Hornets on SI podcast network. Today's show, Mark Williams returns, Brandon Miller is on a heater, and two unlikely heroes emerge in DaQuan, Jeffries and Isaiah Wong. And to break it all down, as he does every week with me here, is Sam Dracula. Sam, how's your week going?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well, man. Holidays around the corner. Watching a lot of college football. Got a surprise Ashley Shamedy sighting on ESPN as the SEC title game. Like, I was like, whoa, I haven't heard that name in a minute. She was doing like the Dr. Pepper throw a football for $1 million, whatever the thing was. So that was cool seeing her on TV again. And then now,
what do you make? Here's a question. What do you make of Shannon, who's replaced Ashley so far? Obviously,
really
friend of the show. She came on the podcast, but like we can talk right openly in terms of like, what have you thought?
Oh, honestly, I think she's good. You know, like that whole setup, it seems like so chemistry based. And I think it was a slight kind of like learning curve to it. But I think she's been good. Like really, really solid. No, nothing that's made me go, ooh, you know?
Yeah. Look, it was pretty clear. And, when I spoke to her, she said this, like she's not done basketball in a little while, right? So there's a learning curve with her, like getting to know not just the people she's working with, but like getting to know the players and understand everything. But I think she's done a perfectly good job so far. I think she's obviously like ultimate pro. So yeah, welcome to the street, Ashley. Shannon Spake, but Ashley Shamedy, shout out because it's good to see you back in our lives here and there.
Yeah, she got a good game too. You never know with these conference title games. Like the ACC one was in Charlotte, so that would have made sense. But the other one's in Atlanta, SEC, bigger game. So I'm glad she got the good spotlight.
Yeah. All right. Well, last time we spoke, Sam, we talked some breakout players, and we said at the end of the podcast, by the next time we record, Mark Williams will have stepped back on a basketball court, breaking the streak for the longest active player in the NBA who had not appeared in an NBA game. And we've now seen 3 appearances, sat 1 game out, which was on the second night of a back-to-back. What has been your early thoughts on Mark Williams? You've not seen him a lot. He's on a minute restrictions, 10 minutes per game. But what have been your early thoughts?
I mean, that's the main thing. It's just like they're really, really taking their time with it, as they should, because he's a young player. This team is built for the future, and there's no purpose in just running him out there for 15 minutes right now when he hasn't played in a year, right? And risking something really bad happening. Because there were times in that Cleveland game where, how old is Mark? 23? Was he 22?
That sounds right.
He's 22, right? I think he's 22 right now. I think his birthday's coming up soon, on the 16th. Happy birthday in advance, Mark. But he's moving like he's 30s plus at times in that Cleveland game. I was a bit concerned in that game specifically about his mobility, but it didn't affect him. Like there was this instance where you kind of come up lame and you kind of carry that with you for a little bit and then you shake it off. That happened a little bit too much for my comfort in the Cavs game. But everything else, dunks, 1 block, unfortunately, so far. Rebounding, continuing the trend, because his job now is to outround Diabate. Like this is such a weird.
Well, that could be difficult.
Like the Hornets have been on such a run on dominating the glass between Richards and Diabate, where you have Mark Williams is like, this is your thing. You're the biggest dude on the team. You have the probably like largest standing reach in the league. Like you should be carrying the trend. So like there's a mark, to no pun intended, to measure his ability on the glass, as once he gets fully involved. I'm not killing him for like 5 rebounds in a game or whatever. Like that's still very good, especially in only 10 plus minutes. But Mark so far, he looks like Mark, a little scary at times in my opinion, but largely good.
What exactly are you scared about? Just how he's moving physically?
Yeah, it's that thing. It's that confidence thing where you're gonna get banged up. You're gonna hit the floor, and it's like until I see you get up a few times without issues or without having to shake something off, I won't worry about it anymore. Right? Like I went through this with LaMelo. Right? LaMelo hits the deck. I was terrified for years. Now I know he's out hurt now, but this season that was gone for me. I wasn't worried that LaMelo wouldn't get up or wouldn't come up holding something or having to shake something off because he's fallen and gotten up so many times since. So for me, I need to visually see him run through that a couple times where I'm not terrified that he's re-aggravated something because
I thought there was actually a few plays where like he was kind of, I don't know, like, took off in midair trying to like grab a rebound and like somewhat you'd even say like recklessly. And like if you're low in confidence, you're worried. There's especially one offensive rebound that he had. I think it was in that Knicks game, or it might have been the Cleveland game, where it was the Cleveland game where like he almost like kind of just completely took off, and I was like, oh, like he did that. He's feeling okay. He's feeling good. Like that's a positive sign. So I've not seen that, but I do know what you mean about like the concern. Like you see him hit the floor. Like please get back up.
It's a me thing. I'm putting that's a me thing. I'm not saying he's not confident. I'm saying it's a me thing.
I get you. Yeah. Look, it's obviously everyone has not seen Mark Williams in so long. I think everyone wants to see more, especially when the Hornets have struggled for big men the last week with all the injuries, illnesses, everything else that we touched on. I thought in his very first game back against Philly, that was, I'd say, like the roughest of the games. I mean, he took some really like out of control drives that even like Pete Mark Williams he wasn't taking that shot where he was like driving from 20 feet away, putting the ball on the floor. It looked a little bit forced, looked like he just wanted to get a shot attempt up. I think in the last two games, he looked more like himself. Like, okay, grabbing rebounds, grabbing lobs or catches around the rim, getting putbacks. And that's where he's really found success so far. Like, not so much like the kind of ball skills, putting the ball deck side of thing. I think defensively, I don't think he's been great so far. He's definitely been a bit jumpy, like falling for fakes everywhere on the perimeter, on the interior as well. Like as soon as guys, I think he just needs to get you talk about the speed of the game, and obviously a lot of people talk about that on offense, but I think we need to see the speed of the game convert him back for defense, like understanding what players are looking to do, looking when people are actually driving to shoot versus driving to pass. And he's looked a little step slow on some of that stuff, but this is all to be expected. Like I imagine here it's going to take, 2 to 4 weeks for him to get back feeling to being in basketball shape and having that level of sharpness that we maybe saw at the start of last season.
Yeah, I think, the Hornets have a good break here. He could be one of the main people to watch to like really shine coming out of this break. And the Hornets could use it for sure. Because I know they got Philly, but the Chicago, Philly, Washington.
And Embiid will be back.
Yeah, the Embiid will be, it's a long day. But
I'm so happy the Wizards beat the Nuggets, by the way. Because if the Hornets had to go play the Wizards on like a 13-game losing streak, that would have been a really stressful watch. And now the pressure is a little bit more off.
Bro, did you watch that game?
I did not.
I was like, listen, I want to watch some Nuggets basketball, right? And no Murray, no Gordon, like I get it, but dog, like the Wizards were playing out of their minds, and Jokic had an incredible game. But I was just looking at the Nuggets supporting cast, and I was like, damn, bro, like I think the Hornets like rotation's better than the Nuggets right now. Like I think like watching Peyton Watson, like or even Michael Porter Jr. had a really bad game, like. I was like, man, like, is the Hornets supporting cast better than Denver right now? I was like, legitimately on that night. I was
well,
like,
if you take out Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, then you probably can make an argument, and that's what happens, right? When you're a championship contender for a long time, and the NBA CBA just slowly suffocates the life out of you, right? Because you end up having to put picks together to make trades, to add people, to get rid of salaries, to do all those things. And then like their whole philosophy was draft experienced guys in the late first round, early second round. They did that with Strother. They did that with Pickett. They did that with Hunter Tyson as well. And like Strother's been okay at times. Kristen Brown has actually played pretty well this year, but on the whole, it's not been enough for them for a team with championship aspirations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching it thinking like, I think we're a little early for trade talks, but obviously Denver needs some help, and it's hard not to think about the Hornets roster in these instances. I'm like, they could use Nick Richards, they could use Cody Martin. I was just go through the list in my head. All these guys are serious upgrades over what they have right now, which is a good thing for the Hornets, a good place for the Hornets to be right now, where you can look at a roster like Denver, like, you know what? We got some guys that can get into that lineup or into that rotation.
Yeah. Anyway, down the Denver Nuggets rabbit hole. Let's circle quickly back to Mark Williams.
Yes.
Look, late addition to the injury report in the game against the Pacers, which was, I think, a little bit of a concern for some people. I actually think that was probably a mistake from someone, because the injury report came out and Mark Williams wasn't on it, and then it got added to it. But it was a planned maintenance. Like, it's obviously clear they don't want him playing second nights of back-to-backs at the moment while he's on this kind of plan to come back from injury. So it feels like that was the first back-to-back, and maybe someone somewhere didn't know that Mark Williams isn't doing those, right? So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about that. I do wonder if this 10-minute per game limit is going to change after these 4 days off here. I wonder if maybe they ramp it up a little bit to like 15, 16 with I say, on a week of basketball under him, having another 4 days or so of practice here. I wouldn't be surprised if that just crept up a little bit next week. But look, overall, he still looks like Mark Williams. It is not like he's all of a sudden not able to move the same way. For me, it's just a lacking some sharpness side of things that he's currently lacking. But there's nothing physically. I wouldn't look at that and go, oh yeah, physically he doesn't look the same. And that's after someone's been out that long with that number of injuries. That's all I really care about right now. And we'll worry about the other stuff if it doesn't come back, some of the skills side of things, some of the, understanding the game. If that doesn't come back in a month's time, then we'll talk about those concerns then. But for now, he's going to give this team some much needed size.
Yeah, no doubt. And to his credit, like, he stayed in shape for a year. He could have easily put on pounds. We haven't really seen his cardio really be tested, right? But that'll come in time. But good on him for staying focused and locked in, because we've seen big men go out for long periods of time, come back way bigger in the worst way. So salute to him for that.
All right, next up, we got to talk about Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller, in the 6 games since LaMelo Ball went down, is 27 points, 5.5 rebounds, just under 3 assists per game, shooting only 39% from the field, but 35% from 3. He's had to do a lot of heavy lifting with no LaMelo Ball. And look, had a really good close to the Indiana Pacers game. We're not even mentioned that last night. Hornets broke their losing streak. 8 games, broken, snapped. About time. They deserve to win one of these games. Like, they've been so hurt. No one can blame them for losing, really. And they've been in all these tight games. And Brandon Miller really delivered down the stretch. I think at one point, he scored or assisted on, I think, 10 straight points towards the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And was spectacular. So the question I want to ask you, Sam, is, and I'm going to do this, let's do the sports radio thing.
Hey, let's do it.
Sam Dracula.
Yes.
Has LaMelo Ball been holding Brandon Miller back?
Yes. No. Truthfully, this version of Brandon Miller is incredible. But is this realistically what he is as a basketball player? I don't think so. Right? And when everybody's back, he'll be able to settle into what he really is. Because I think he's objectively overperforming right now. And for him to do this on a nightly basis, I don't think it's very realistic for a guy in the second year. It'd be great. I would love that to happen. But with LaMelo, he was still getting a lot of shots a game as well. Let's not forget, both those guys are putting up tons of shots.
I've got numbers on that. So with LaMelo Ball in the lineup, and what I did with this was I did the last 11 games with LaMelo, because Brandon Miller, if you remember, he had that glute strain. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, a little rusty coming back from that. So I basically took up until 2 games after that glute strain, up until LaMelo Ball got injured. So that 11 games, he was at just under 19 field goals attempts per game and 11 3-point attempts. And he's now at 23 field goals per game in the last 6 games and at 13.3 3-point attempts a game. So he's taken 5 more shots per game since LaMelo has gone out. 2 of those are coming from beyond the arc, basically. So absolutely is being much more aggressive, and look, quite frankly, needs to be, right? Just like LaMelo had to be aggressive at times. Exactly. They need this version of Brandon Miller because the Hornets have a lot of like good hustle guys this year. The Cody Martins, the Josh Greens, DaQuan Jeffries, Diabates. But what they're not blessed with are a ton of scorers, especially when Trey Mann and Miles Bridges are both out.
Just effortless scores too. Like Brandon Miller is so smooth out there that these jumpers he takes, it doesn't matter who's in front of him, whether it's Miles Turner or TJ McConnell, like the shots are the same and he's moving with the same confidence every time. Like Brandon Miller right now, like last night, Brandon Miller was insane. It's absolutely craziness. It's a truly a gift to even be able to say, is somebody holding somebody else back? Because we have these like 2 incredible young stars in our midst here, and not a lot of franchises get these types of gifts.
Yeah, and if you want to say like, would Brandon Miller put up better stats without LaMelo Ball? Then I think the answer is yes. Like we're seeing this now, like bigger counting stats. I mean, over that time, Miller's efficiency has dropped by 4% from the field, by 3% and 3. He is getting to the free throw line more, 2.5 times with LaMelo Ball, 5 free throw attempts without LaMelo. But so if you want to make that argument, that I'm not going to tell you no, but also in those 6 games, the Hornets are 1-5. So, and with LaMelo Ball in the lineup, they're a lot more competitive. I do think there is a better balance that could be found between these 2 realities of where LaMelo was taking a ton of shots, when he was healthy at the start of the year before the calf injury. And I would like something in the middle of this more aggressive Brandon Miller and a slightly less aggressive LaMelo Ball. And maybe this time where Brandon Miller is having like this opportunity to really be the guy, that's going to build his confidence. It's going to maybe earn some trust with Charles Lee. And maybe this is a good thing for both parties. And they come back and they're able to find something in the middle. Because I think like, I don't think LaMelo Ball is an empty stats player, but I do think he could cut out probably 3 or 4 bad shots per game. And if you give those to Brandon, the type of shots he's taking, I feel like I like that distribution of offense just a little bit more.
Right. And then you're going to have to like put Miles Bridges into the mix somehow, Trey Mann off the bench. Where does that fit in? This team has been incredibly imbalanced with the availability of these guys. And so credit to them for being adaptable in these instances where only anyone knows who's going to be really available on any given night at this point, or who can go down at any given time. Throughout the day, guys' statuses are changing. Like it's really a revolving door. But
the only person you can rely on is Cody Martin. And I bet you would not believe me if I told you that 2 years ago.
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
Cody Martin is the guy who's there every night. Just think about that for a second, everyone.
He's the Iron Man. I swear he must have gone through every fit in his closet the last couple of years. And now he's over here like locking down Siakam. Like Cody Martin's been incredible this season. I'm so happy he's been staying healthy and showing everyone what he can do.
Yeah.
But to your point about the team, like this team, especially against the Pacers, it's giving like when there's a mid-major that somehow got like a 4 or 5 star guy. And that's what it seems like. Brandon Miller is the first round pick, the lottery pick. Think Butler, I guess, with Gordon Hayward or whatever, where you have like your one clear star and then a bunch of 4th or 5th year seniors around them, guys that are high work rate, and there's really competent players just making the most of it. Undersized, playing out of position, it doesn't matter. Like the work rate, the hustle is always there. And that one guy is the focal point of the offense whenever he gets a shot. It's probably going in. That's what it kind of felt like. It felt like a NCAA tournament team last night, watching Miller run around with Cody at the 4 and Josh Green and Jeffries and Wong. Like it was really a sight to see. And I'm that's the beauty of the sport. You see these random groupings of guys who in a couple months, half those guys probably may not even be on the team anymore. Like we don't know what this thing will look like. But right now, it's all these like random pieces thrown in there, and it's at least last night it was working.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I feel the why it's working, because I think he's got better and better over this stretch. I don't even know if the points trend in that way, but since LaMelo's got out, and one thing I've noticed is he seems to be dribbling a lot less.
Yeah.
Like early on, he was doing a lot of dribbling, and that was allowing doubles to come his way, a lot of help defense to come his way. And then he was getting into like turnover issues. And I've noticed now he is dribbling less, like holding the ball and almost just doing like one dribble shot, like one dribble make a decision, less ball pounding, which is something I think that we all talked about earlier in the year. There was a little bit of over dribbling at times. And I know that is something Charles Lee's been preaching on him. And I can see him learning in real time. And that's excellent to see. I mean, I will say one time he did dribble last night when he had the crossover to split the double team. We have not seen that before. And he went for the Statue of Liberty dunk. Like that shiftiness on the handle, that's something new. We've not seen that. And that was making me really excited, because if he can start splitting those double teams, which the teams are going to throw at him all the time because of his ability to shoot over and above people from beyond the arc, then that really changes things for his ability to kind of attack the rim. Now, it's not always that smooth. We've seen him put the ball on the floor before, and he can be turnover prone. But last night, that one particular play, that popped.
Yeah, and his directness is only going to help the other guys around him, because you're always going to have that shot either at an offensive board, or maybe Brandon draws a double team and creates an opening for you. He can find you. Like there's a rewarding factor in that when you're more direct, and when you have role players or two-way guys out there, it gives them a chance to shine where they don't have to just like sit and stare in and watch you dribble and hope the ball comes away. This way, they know if they hustle, they can get a shot at getting involved.
Yeah, it still boggles my mind a little bit when Brandon Miller gets free off a screen for a 3-point shot attempt. Like it happens 6 or 7 times a game, and I sit there wondering, what are the other teams scouting about? like because we all know he wants to come off the down screen around the kind of like wing part of the 3-point line and fire away. And I have to say, like, I watched a couple last night being like, why is Brandon Miller getting open? He should not be getting open here. And I just have to give Brandon Miller some credit, and Charles Lee, because he's got great technique. Little body fakes that he throws in, thinking he's going backdoor. Sometimes he does cut backdoor, so it makes the defender doubt. He's got really good technique and footwork to catch, rise up quickly, and get a line to the hoop for the shot. It's just hard when someone is 6'9" and they can move like that and they have that technique. Like, even if you play good trailing defense, he's got so much height, he can just shoot over that. So he doesn't really appear to be open, and everyone's scared to foul a 3-point shooter now. Yeah. But it's still like, I think Charles E talked about other teams are now trying to like top block him, so not let him come up off those screens. And then he's still finding ways to make plays even when they do that. But still incredible when he gets open coming off a screen. Everyone knows what's going to happen. If I was the other team, I would just send like the big, the guard, whoever's closest. Do not let Brandon Miller catch with a slither of clean air, because it's going to go in like 1 in 3, 1 in 2 times.
Yeah, legit. Like, I don't know what Indiana was doing last night from a scheme point of view. Like,
well,
just generally speaking, it was very weird. Like, very, very weird. To have Siakam, Turner, and Toppin, and for the Hornets to only really have Nick Richards as a big, you would think they would focus that mismatch. And they didn't seem interested in that at all. At all. So that was strange. But to your point, they have really big athletes that could switch and keep up with Brandon Miller, but they didn't. And I want to give Brandon the credit for that. But it is partial for both. Like some weird stuff from Rick Carlisle last night for sure.
Yeah. Charles Lee talked a lot about Brandon Miller early in preseason about doing a better job owning his space, and I think we've seen a little bit of frustration with that even now continue. Like, these last 3 or 4 games are probably the most frustrated I've seen Brandon Miller. Like, he frustrated with referees, frustrated with how the game is going. And I actually quite like it.
Yep.
Like, it's an all-star pout. Do you know what I mean? It's when he knows that he deserves the call and he knows what other people are doing and he's not getting it. And it's the kind of frustration that you see guys like Luka Doncic get, when they're getting fouled and they know they're getting fouled. And it's also a sign of respect from the other team, because they're having to pull, claw, scrap to try and slow someone down. But there's definitely still like some offensive fouls, where he's trying to like kind of like keep guys off him. I think he's still getting used to playing with physicality, but he's embracing the challenge. And even though there are some of these offensive fouls and sloppy footwork at times, like last night in the Indiana game, he turned the ball over 3 or 4 times, just like having the ball at the top of the arc with no one even around him, just sloppy stuff. But he's embracing that challenge on the physicality, and he's trying to own his place. I think he's just still trying to figure out how he can do it without the referees always going against him.
Yeah, I would love to hear from a referee about players complaining, because I think at some point you're going to give in. If it happens enough, or you end up like Scott Foster and Chris Paul. Like, I don't know. It can go either way, but I think staying on, there has to be some psychology behind staying on the referees in at least a respectful way, not outright cursing at them or whatever happened with Chris Paul and Scott Foster. There has to be some type of balance with it. And it's because there's a reason all the stars in the league do it. Are they all entitled? Probably. That's part of it. That's part of it, though. That's part of the sport. And really every sport, you're always going to say, the ball's mine. It was out on them. That was a foul on them. Like, it's always going to be the other guys. But I'm always curious, and I've never spoken with the referee about this, if there's an element of, all right, I'm gonna hear it from him. If he doesn't get this call, I'm gonna give him this one.
Subconsciously, I think it will affect everyone differently. But you are right. I definitely think there will be something there. Here's a stat for you. Since LaMelo Ball went injured, since November 29th, Brandon Miller is 4th in the NBA in fourth quarter scoring. So we talked about LaMelo Ball being a clutch player coming in. Like right now, LaMelo Ball is averaging, I think, 11 points in the fourth quarter. Brandon Miller's at 9.4 in this run. And definitely like LaMelo a little bit, seems to come alive in these key moments. Like can have slow, quiet starts to the game where he can be a little bit short in his jumpers. But as the game goes on, seems to get up to speed with it. And yeah, showing that kind of closing ability when other teams are probably trying 100%. They're locked in on him. That's also encouraging to see.
Yeah, and I know we talked about the Hornets not having any All-Stars this year at the beginning of the season.
Oh.
I think no, I'm not this year. Not this year.
Yes, go on. You can do it.
I think next year
I believe in you.
I think we have 2 All-Stars from the Charlotte Hornets next season.
Well, they need to win 40. They need to be on a over 500 pace for that to be possible.
I think not to jump ahead, but that's when I think it flips. We're 1 year away from being a year away. It's next year where it happens. I promise.
Very interesting. Well, look, there's definitely some signs here, and I think it makes me excited for when LaMelo and Brandon are back healthy together, because we probably only got like an 11-game stretch of that. And there was a lot of other pieces missing. Yeah. It feels like it's going to happen. January time, Sam, we're going to be on here. We're going to be talking about a LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Josh Green, Mark Williams lineup, and it's going to be glorious.
Yeah. It's that sounds crazier than having 2 All-Stars next year.
It does. It does feel that way at times. I can't disagree. Anything else on Brandon Miller?
No, man. Like he's really special. And
he is. He's really special. It's strange watching it. Like you get used to it so quickly, and then when you look at teams like the Wizards and you go, Jesus Christ, they would trade everything on their team to get Brandon Miller, and it wouldn't even be a question. And I'm really excited. It's the jump that you hope to see in the second year, but it doesn't always happen. Like, everyone will be like, "Oh, he's second overall pick. He should improve from last year." Doesn't always happen the way it's going right now. We're seeing real growth, and love to see it.
But that's the
Absolutely
thing. Like,
love it.
Like the Hornets, to their fault, failed to get into like the top 5 of the draft for far too long. Right? It's just a year after year being at the middle and bottom end of the lottery. So the 2 times they got into the top 3 with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, like knocked it out the park. Right? the LaMelo one, the decision was pretty much made for them at the time.
It was. The reporting goes, and it's pretty well sourced reporting, that if James Wiseman was there, they would have picked James Wiseman.
Right. And that's the right call at the time, right? I know in hindsight we know how things worked out for Wiseman.
I didn't.
You weren't a Wiseman guy?
Well, I was, but I was Wiseman clearly behind Ball and Edwards. Yeah, so, like, I had him like 3 or 4 in my rankings, but those two were top 2 comfortably.
Gotcha. Well, then, and then fast forward 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, right? Miller was 23 draft or 22 draft? I think
he was 23 draft.
They had a choice. They could have made the wrong choice, and they didn't. And now, we'll see where they end up this year. But largely, having the opportunity to strike at the top of the draft, they've nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
Not so much around 11 in that range, you know what I mean? But everywhere else, nailed it. At the top, nailed it.
Now, you're talking about the top of the draft. Let's do a 180. Let's talk about the bottom of the draft and undrafted players.
Hey.
And where do you want to start? Isaiah Wong or DaQuan Jeffries? Maybe 3 All-Stars? One of those 2 next year? 3 All-Stars.
Hey, with the new format, you never know. They're going to be the Rising Stars game, right? Like, does that count? But Wong in the Rising Stars game? I want to talk about Wong because is he not younger, taller Ish Smith? Watching him, he's fast, he's frisky. Like it just reminds me of like much younger and much bigger Ish Smith. And I mean that as a compliment.
I'd say he's more of a scorer than Ish was, and like Ish was like a pretty special defender too. And like he has a jump shot, which like Ish just never like beyond the arc. Isaiah Wong, we've not seen him much yet, but you dig into the tape, he's a better shooter than that. But I can see what you mean with his competitiveness and just his shiftiness, right? The first thing I wrote in my notes for Isaiah Wong for this pod, super shifty, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, that's the trait you've pulled out, and I agree with that.
Yeah, like like I had no idea what to expect from him. And watching him roll and just execute. Like, I never had so much confidence in a two-way guy that I've only seen play twice. Isaiah Wong is awesome, bro. I don't know what happens after the Pacers game, but so far, so good. I'm a big fan of Isaiah Wong.
Yeah. He's had a real impact in those last 2 games. And
it's unreal.
Like, I don't want to do this, but if you contrast it to Nick Smith Jr.
Yeah, you were saying that at the time. Yeah, you're worried about.
I mean, you talk about feeling one guy in the court and then another guy just being out there.
Yeah.
And it is a stark contrast when you see Isaiah Wong in the game. He uses a shiftiness. He has these like massive strides, this spin move, this head fake. He puts so much pressure on the defense because of his like just ability to get anywhere he wants on the floor. He's like an elite space creator, especially in the mid range and around the rim. So like a Nick Smith is just a guy who everybody in the game knows. All you have to do is kind of like make sure he can't shoot an open jump shot, and he's probably not going to hurt you. And Isaiah Wong is like, everybody needs to have the head on the swivel. I'm not staying in front of this guy. He's probably going to like cover like 8 feet by doing a spin move and suddenly like twist our defense into an awkward position. Getting to the foul line well. He's been quite eye-popping, and it's a testament to him. He's forced his way into the rotation so quickly after being signed.
Bro, Nick Smith hasn't shot a free throw yet.
Doesn't surprise me.
You know, like
everything's fading away. Like it does not surprise me.
And Wong has 8 in 2 games.
Wow,
it's unreal. It's unreal, man. And like Nick's, it's steals, but Nick has 4. Isaiah has 2 already. It's trending in a certain direction. And
those steals from Wong, loud steals, right? Yeah. Like he's diving on the floor, getting in passing lanes, pressuring guys. Like he's even picked up 1 or 2 fouls, I think, which were like unfortunate. I think he got called for one. Well, that's Micic maybe. He's been called for like a couple of fouls going for the ball where it's like just there and he didn't quite get it, but it's a foul that you don't mind as a coach because the guy's like trying to make the right play and trying to play pressure. And we've seen Charles Lee likes ball pressure from his guards. He likes guys getting into guys. And the question is, like, will he keep that up always? Like, I watched Wong in college at Miami when I was doing draft stuff, and I wouldn't say that was like a constant trait of his. And when you've been signed to a two-way, you're out there, you're trying to prove yourself, you're trying to earn minutes, and like, will that stay up forever? Is that just Isaiah Wong basketball, or is that Isaiah Wong trying to prove himself after just joining the team basketball? And hopefully we're going to find out. And I hope it sticks around, because if it sticks around, when you combine that with the scoring packages, like that's an NBA player right there. Like we've seen enough. It really is in 2 games.
And bro, like Isaiah Wong, through 2 games, Isaiah Wong seems like one of those guys you're like that would ironically be on the Miami Heat. And you're like, where'd they find this one, man? Like, what the hell? Like, where'd they get this sick undrafted guy from? Like, I remember when
he's sitting out there for everyone to sign.
Yeah, like he was there.
Not on a two-way for any team. There are 92-way contracts in the NBA, and no one signed Isaiah Wong in the summer. And do you know what the reason why I think? I think there's a key thing here. I've seen Isaiah Wong interviewed. He's a super quiet introvert. And when you're like borderline roster type guys and you're trying to fight your way into the league, I think maybe if you're someone, and I don't know here, but if you struggle to be one of the guys to like just seems like fit into the team, into that dynamic, and like then that can sometimes see you just get a little bit forgotten about. And I wonder if that was something with Isaiah Wong. But right now, like this Hornets team, it doesn't matter what you are, like they need bodies, and he's getting the opportunity and he's showing it. Like even though his introvert personality, when he's on the court, he's actually a pretty loud, swaggy game.
Yeah, he's picking up Garland, picking up Mitchell. Like he don't care. He doesn't care. I'm so here for it. It's exciting having a guard like him in the mix.
A couple of things I do think he needs to focus on. Had a couple of like blind drives where he's like forced a shot and it's got blocked, and like there was no way that shot was going up there, and a little bit black holey at times. So he needs to work on that. And there also had some turnovers where he's kind of taken off and not quite sure where he's going. So I think part of that's on him. Part of that is also on his teammates. They need to understand which shots he is and isn't going to take, and kind of like when to cut and where he's going to pass the ball out. But yeah, that's one area that I think I've seen so far. I'm like, it's okay, the fact that you've just got in the league and you're making these mistakes. But if you'll keep going down this route, then that's something that could be biting long term for rotation minutes. But that's the only real fly in the ointment so far. We've not seen much creation. He did play some point guard in Miami as well. We haven't seen much creation yet, but I think they view him more as a scorer, defender type than a point guard.
Listen, you got Micic out here dropping dimes. You don't need him doing that, you know what I mean?
Hey, we said last week. It could be the comeback. So he's been one of the 2 best players in the team for the last 2 games.
James and I were talking before recording. I was at a dinner during the Pacers game, so I couldn't watch live. So I watched the all possessions recap on League Pass. And because it was in Indiana, I had to watch the Pacers feed. And listening to the Pacers announcers would not recommend if you have the option to it. But hearing them complain about everything, entertaining. But also, when Micic, I forget which 3 it was, he dribbled into the 3, let it fly, swish. Those guys lost their minds when that happened. They're like, they could not believe what Micic was doing to them in Indiana last night, and neither could I. It was incredible. Shouts to Micic.
Because you watched the condensed game version, right? Where it's like possession.
All possessions. Yeah,
you must have seen. There must have been like 3 out of 4 possessions in that second quarter. It's like Micic for 3, bang. Micic for 3, bang. And you're like, what is going on?
The announcer, the Pacers color guy, at one point just goes, he just screams. You had no more words because Micic was going crazy.
Fair, I was equally screaming, being like, I was frantically checking, going, Micic career high 3-pointers made, and turns out he made 5 last year against the Memphis Grizzlies. So he didn't reach his career high.
Game? It must have been, right? That was his debut, right?
It might have been. You might, yeah.
That was
I think he had a career high in points and 3-pointers made in that game.
Yeah, I was there for that. I made it a point to go to that game because I wanted to hear the Grant Williams introduction and the Seth Curry introduction, the Charlotte boys coming home.
Yeah.
And also, would have been I knew it was going to be a win because the Grizzlies were terrible.
So Isaiah Wong, we pretty comfortable with him ahead of NSJ in the rotation.
Yes.
Pretty worrying for NSJ right now. We're not going to get into it, but we touched on some of the struggles last week about Nick Smith Jr., but like feels like if like this, he could just turn it around, right? Micic turned it around halfway through the season. Like, could just change like a different player. Could happen with Nick Smith. If it doesn't, I'm pretty concerned about Nick Smith Jr.'s future in Charlotte. Isaiah Wong, ahead of Seth Curry in your depth chart as well?
Oh, man. No. I wouldn't go that far yet.
Okay.
Seth? Oh, man. Okay, so with today's roster, my thing with Seth is I view Seth as you leave him out there to see if he has it on a night. If he has it, if he doesn't have it, like Cleveland, you played 5 minutes, he didn't have it. Pacers game, he played 12, he did have it. So it's like if he has it, go for it. Just see what he's got tonight. And if he's not bringing it, he's not bringing it. Wong, I don't know. I don't have that much faith in him yet over Seth. I would take the gamble of running Seth over giving Wong extended periods.
All right. Well, look, I think he's going to have a chance here. We're going to get to see a little bit more the next couple of weeks. Well, while LaMelo and Trey Mann is out.
Yeah.
When they return, like his path to playing time probably looks unlikely if everybody's healthy. But hopefully we'll get to see a few more games here because it's been interesting. Okay. DaQuan Jeffries, who every Hornets fan is going, what is this guy doing on the team? They got him in the signing trade with the Knicks that they did in preseason. Everyone just presumed they were going to waive all the guys who came over in that signing trade because it was basically done to get second round picks. Mm-hmm. He fractured his hand in preseason and then like stuck around on the team. Everyone's going, what's going on? And then he's just had like 2 of the best role player games, like of almost any bench player for the Hornets this year. I mean, he's been playing center, power forward. He's 6'5" with a 6'11" wingspan. Coming out of college at the draft that he came out in, apparently he weighed 206 pounds. Mm. That man is 225 now. I feel like he is absolutely stacked. No,
he's a big fella. He's listed at 230 on Basketball Reference.
There you go. Yeah. So he's played in 4 teams before Charlotte. He played in Houston, Sacramento, New York. He's 27 years old, so not as young. Like Wong was like a 23-year-old, right?
Yeah.
But he just looks like a pretty athletic, aggressive guy attacking the rim. Had some good finishes inside the arc. And like the 3-point shot, it's a high arcer, but he's really confident in it. And he looks full of confidence now. You saw it in the Indiana game when he was trailing the play and he caught the 3 and shot it super early in the shot clock and nailed that 3. Like, you're like, okay, he's pretty comfortable right now out there on the floor. And for him to have been out for so long with this broken hand, not really played with any of these guys before, and for like 2 or 3 games into his Hornets career where he's been forced to play because of injuries, for him to look that comfortable out there, like we talk all the time, like Mark Williams, oh, he's coming back, he looks a bit rusty. He just looks super ready, which I didn't think anyone was expecting, and all of a sudden, like, looks like a pretty useful player.
No, it's not. It's unreal. It's so crazy because he has no business being this ready to go.
No,
like he has no business doing this, and it's against real teams. Like it's not like we're playing the Wizards every night. Like this is Knicks, Cleveland, and Pacers. Like these are all playoff teams, and Jeffries is holding his own. That's craziness. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah. I mean, 60% from 3 isn't going to continue.
Right.
But he's a high 30s shooter in the G League for the last like 5 years. So I don't think this is like complete fool's gold, the shot. I think there is something there. And Like the rebounding, the physicality, the defense, I think has been pretty good as well. Like he's just executing out there. And again, there's not many mistakes when he's out there on the court. I want to give, like, he's a guy that I talked about. I don't know if you talked about just like, what are we doing here? Why aren't we waiving him? We could have used that roster spot to sign bigs when everyone was hurt, could have signed and maybe Jeff Peterson just had really done the work. Scouting the G League, scouting the Knicks, scouting the Houston Rockets and the Kings from when back he was on those teams. Maybe when, you know what, this guy has got something like a solid two-way guy. And if so, then a lot of credit to the front office because I didn't think anyone was really expecting this.
Yeah, and I respect it because they've been pretty. They being the front office has been really consistent with the ideology of being patient and strategic and opportunistic. Basically every roster move is kind of fit underneath that umbrella, and them just waiting to see what they had at Jeffries when they didn't really had to make a move. They could have. No one would have faulted them for waiving him and signing a backup center while Mark and Nick and were out. You know, Diabate being healthy and playing out of his mind certainly made that decision easier, right? But like for them to stand pat and be patient to see what they had in this guy after waiting 21 games, it's commendable, honestly. It also helps again that the expectations aren't up here for the team, right? If this was we need to make the playoffs this year team, ain't no way he's sticking on the roster this long. But where the Hornets are right now, it makes sense.
And with the likes of Diabate and Wong and Jeffries, like seeing these flashes, if they do make some moves at the deadline and after Christmas, we're going to get into probably some, looking at some more trade stuff, and that'll start to heat up a little bit. I think the day that players become eligible to be traded, I think is, I want to say Wednesday of this week, who are signed in the offseason. So that's when trade winds start to pick up. Having these guys at the end of your roster who've like flashed, they might be actual rotation players, not just, I don't know, your JT Thor, Kai Jones, James Bucknight types who like really hurt you as soon as they're out there and it's really apparent that they are not helping you play winning basketball. That might make you more confident to make some of these moves because you feel like you've got that deeper depth you can be called upon and relied. So yeah, who would have thought? So if I told you in preseason, December 9th, and one of our major topics is going to be about the strong play of Isaiah Wong and DaQuan Jeffries, you would have been like, nah, that's a different team. Who are you talking about? The Greens for Swarm?
Yeah. All right, let me ask you something. And I'm curious to get your opinion on this. Because in football, both American football and European football, numbers are important. It's kind of a status thing. Like in American football, if you're a single digit number one especially, you're that guy.
Yeah,
you're that dude. In European football, global football, right? Your 10s, 9s, 7, 11s, you don't wear those if you're trash. Those are saved for the hitters on the team. Seeing Jeffries until he we haven't seen him play yet, but seeing Jeffries wear the number 3 and Marquise Bolden wear the number 3 after Terry Rozier, it doesn't feel good. Jeffrey, excuse me, I'm not saying they should retire Rozier's number at all. I'm not saying that, but it is weird so soon. There should be some moratorium unless a guy can really prove they can ball out. Now Jeffries he's balling out so far, so I'm not mad at it. But it always kind of strikes me as odd when I see a lower rotation guy with a really good number. It's like, what's going on here? Like, could we just put him in the 30s or something like that, or the 40s until he can earn it?
When they like get asked like, what number do you want? And they say like, DaQuan Jeffries like, I want number 3. Do you think like the person who he's speaking to, like the PR or team operations guy, looks at him and goes, really? What number did you say? 3. 33? No, just 3. Like, tries to subtly give him the hint.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like, there has to be some. I know there's not. Obviously not, because he's wearing it. And so deservedly so. He's playing well. But it is a bit jarring sometimes when you see, like, a notable number on a guy who isn't very good. Thankfully, Jeffries is turning out to be very good, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, look, it's just nice to have some positivity here because it's been 2 or 3 weeks where it's been pretty rough, and we have genuinely interesting, fresh new storylines, right? Like it's nice to have new heroes emerge throughout the season. And we've had it with Diabate.
Yeah.
Now got it with Wong and Jeffries. And it adds excitement, enjoyment. Like it's an 82 game season and you need something like you don't want to watch the same movie every night. And we haven't seen that. And I appreciate the diversity, even if it's forced upon the Hornets by a pretty unfortunate situation. But look, I'm hopeful here. I'm hopeful the Hornets are going to start to get some of their guys back. Like we said, we got 4 days off. We're recording this Monday night. We have 4 days off before they play again against the Chicago Bulls. This is due to the NBA Cup and the kind of gap in the schedule, and that's why it's happened. And LaMelo Ball should be reevaluated on Wednesday this week. Not saying he'll be back for Friday, but reevaluated. And I believe he was seen doing some shooting during, I think, pre-game shoot round earlier this week. So that's normally a good sign that someone's like back on the court and can warm up. So LaMelo Ball, I kind of think we might be late December, January, but it's possible he could be back as soon as this upcoming weekend.
So
Miles Bridges.
They play the Bulls Friday, maybe a little bit too soon for Lonzo LaMelo, right? But they play the Bulls again December 30th. That could be something that they have circled.
It could be.
You know what I mean?
Miles Bridges, he's been doing individual work on the court since I think November 27th. So that's been 10 days now. He's been doing individual workouts. That to me feels like he might be ready to come back relatively soon as well. Musa Diabate, he had an illness last couple of nights. Feels like normally illnesses are a 24, 48 hour thing. He could be back soon. Trey Mann was on the same timeline as LaMelo Ball, so he could be reevaluated this week. Nick Richards came back from the ankle sprain. We've not heard a single update about T-John Salon. Yeah. Now, he's been with the team on the road trip, which is good because it feels like he's not had to fly off anywhere to see a specialist or anything like that. Feels like it might just be your standard old ankle sprain. It looked rough, by the way. That ankle sprain, that looked to me like a month out ankle sprain. Like when I saw it, the only thing maybe going for him is if he's like super young and he's not spraying that ankle before, then maybe that's not going to be, he might just have a quicker heal time than like a 30-year vet who might have done an ankle 6, 7, 8 times. Mm. But I say all this to say, there is technically a world, if you believe the Hornets' reevaluation and injury reporting timelines, that the only player who is out in the next game is Grant Williams. Technically, it's possible. My gut says Grant will be out, Salon will be out, Trey Mann will be out, LaMelo will be out. But I think they could have Bridges and Diabate back. And I think with the close play that we've seen, even without those two last couple of games, I think that could be enough to be like a competitive basketball team, which they've been anyway, but even to maybe be a little bit more than that, maybe.
Yeah, getting Bridges back will be massive, obviously, and some front court reinforcement. Because then it all allows you, once you get Nick, Musa, and Mark back in the mix, that will allow you to be more patient with Mark's involvement as well. Like you're resisting that urge to get him out there, especially in a close game. They've been pretty disciplined with that so far, but there's gonna be a certain point where you're gonna want to throw him in the deep end. Having Musa back is gonna be huge for that, which is a crazy sentence, by the way. In a million years did I think I'd be talking about Musa Diabate. I've never said his name before we started this season. Like this is so much fun. I'm so happy he's part of the team and he's killing it. But
I need to find the messages when Chase, the obviously old co-host of the podcast, when they signed Musa Diabate, that was our last ever episode, was just after that. And Chase had announced that he'd been hired by an NBA team. He hadn't revealed it was the Charlotte Hornets yet. And Chase couldn't join me to talk about it because of the job that he'd just taken, right? Mm-hmm. So we had recorded our kind of like farewell podcast. I then stayed on and then I talked about Musa Diabate for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I remember being quite high on like the signing. I remember thinking like he's a young guy, super productive, like toughness, physicality, rebounding. Like those are things that this team needed. And it's, again, another like French-speaking guy for Salon, which is even useful. Super, like, was a one and done, I believe, at Michigan as well. So you still think like it's probably still getting to grips with the game, and was super productive in the G League, and you can see why he would be. So I'm glad Musa's been able to merge and find something here.
Oh, no doubt. When we look back, he's gonna be one of the main storylines when you look back on the season. And it's nice to have those success stories, because there hasn't been a lot of that lately.
Yeah, and we can add Isaiah Wong and DaQuan Jeffries to that list. All right, Sam, that's going to do it for us here. We will catch you next week with our last episode before the Christmas break. Then we're going to take a couple of weeks off. We'll probably be back with you January 6th. I will probably have a pre-recorded podcast releasing at some point over the festive period. That will be our annual podcast we have with Matt Sponauer, who you might remember over the last couple of years. Matt's going to come on. Hopefully, we're going to record our ranking guys who are most to least likely to be back on the team at this time next year, which I think we've done for the last 3 or 4 years in a row now. So always a fun exercise, always good to look back, look at how we got on the year before. So that'll be coming out somewhat of the festive period, but we'll be taking a little bit of a break from the live weekly podcasts. And look, by January, hopefully this team's looking a little bit healthier, and we'll be back with recovered, fresh legs. There'll be no minutes restriction for us, and we'll be back good to go.